I really wish I liked Elden Ring Nightreign. Like, I really wish that I did. At its core, it seems like it would be the perfect game for me. I am someone who loves Souls-likes. I've beaten every FromSoft Souls game, some of them, actually all of them now, multiple times. And there's a lot that I just really enjoy about being in those worlds. And you would think that a continuation of Elden Ring, a game that I was so good that I had to basically platinum it within the first couple months of it being out, like that's good. I love that world and I love being there. That paired with roguelikes, another one of my absolute favorite genres, because I've played so many of them, from your card games like Balatro and Slay the Spire, or dungeon crawlers like Binding of Isaac. I have fucking hundreds of hours in Binding of Isaac. You do not understand. But at its core, Elden Ring Nightreign. I'm just gonna call it Nightreign from now on because it's a mouthful of a name. Nightreign seems to take all of the elements from Souls-likes and roguelikes that I don't like, the things I don't want, and puts them together into this game. At its core, it is not the game that I had hoped it would be. And I say it like that because I genuinely don't think Nightreign is a bad game. I really don't. I think there's a lot of really, really good stuff going into it. But this is a very personal thing for me, just personally. I don't like the game. Simple as that. I have friends who like the game a lot, and I respect a lot of the work that goes into it. And it's the title of the video. I really wish I liked Nightreign, but I just don't. Now, if you've ever seen one of these videos from me, this is going to be one of those ones where it's a little rambly. I'm kind of talking. I've got my phone here with my notes on it. This is not a scripted thing. I just have a long fucking list of shit, and it's long. It's long that I want to talk about. This is probably the longest one of these I've ever done. Usually when I take these notes, it's like I got like 5 bullet points. I want to say there's 25 here, probably something like that. But so it's a little rambly. I'm not scripted here. I'm just talking out of my heart about why I don't like Nightreign and what I wish it had that would have made it better, in my opinion. Yeah, so let's just fucking dive right in. So the two genres they picked for Nightreign, your roguelikes and your Souls-likes. It seems like when they put them together, it should work so well, but I feel like the two genres and the elements of those genres that they picked are at odds with each other. Like, really at odds. For me, when I play a Souls-like, one of my favorite things, well, there's two favorite things I have. There is the slow, methodical combat, the feeling of going up against a boss numerous times over and over again, and that should work really well for Nightreign, because it's a roguelike. You play the game over and over again, you know? Except in between that, you're now being forced to play like an entire day's worth of content before you even reach the boss, which might not be the boss you're trying to learn and go up against. And it just feels like I'm not getting that experience of actually being able to tactically figure out, oh, this is the boss's attack pattern. This is how it works. This is how I overcome this obstacle. I love being able to overcome that obstacle. Then on the other side, actually, one other thing about Souls-likes, I love the exploration of it. And in this game, there is exploration. There's a lot of cool stuff in the world, but you're constantly being rushed on by this closing ring, and it kind of gets rid of that element of it for me. Now to roguelikes. With roguelikes, I find that the roguelikes I love the most, games like Binding of Isaac, Risk of Rain, Hades, things like that, the randomness paired with item synergies is like my favorite thing. I love finding an overpowered combo and just fucking blowing up a run because it's so busted. I love the randomness of sometimes getting a shitty run, and that's okay because you can try to work with it and try to make it good, but it doesn't always have to work out, and that's fine. But I want the ability to actually become busted, and I found that while playing Nightreign, that literally just never happened at all for me. Now, those are my two big things that I love from those genres, and they took everything else basically and put it together here in this middle thing. And I want to address the fact that I really don't think this is a bad game. I think there's a lot of great things going into it, and I have friends who love it. But for me, it just didn't work. So I'm going to kind of go through now just a lot of the stuff about this game the concepts that I wish were different, the things I wish were working better. But first, I do want to give some compliments to this game, because I do genuinely think there's a lot of good stuff in here. First off, the music is fucking amazing. It's sick. I mean, it's what you come to expect from a Souls game, right? But the moment I loaded up the game and I was on the main menu, I was like, oh shit. Oh shit. They put their whole violin into this shit. I don't know what the fuck I'm even saying. But you could tell there's a lot of effort and work put into it. And it turned out great. It's phenomenal. The music is wonderful, and even throughout the runs, you've got this amazing music that accompanies you through these journeys, and it always feels perfectly in place, and it just sounds beautiful. So huge shout out to the music. I don't even know who the composer was for this game off the top of my head. I could probably look it up later. But it sounded great. Another thing I think this game does really well, and it's kind of at odds with what I like about Soulslike, is I think they did a really good job with the action of this game. The combat, it feels good to play. And it's interesting because they're taking that slower, more methodical combat and they speed it up a lot for this game to actually work, because a lot of this game is about going fast. And they give you new abilities to make you go faster, but that plus just the way it all tends to flow together, it felt really good. It was very satisfying. But again, it contradicts what I, in my brain, like about Souls-likes. So, going into the issues now, I guess, the core issues of the game, which I think have been kind of talked about to death, and I will talk about them a little bit, but I want to focus on some other things. The biggest issues I would see from people, and I think this is just being in that internet zeitgeist and in the fucking, what's the echo loop or whatever of hearing the same things over and over again. The biggest complaints I would see from people were the solo mode is unbalanced, which they even patched before I played this game, and I still think it kind of sucks. And then the fact that there's not duos, which I could take or leave. I don't care that much. I played the game several runs through solo and with multiplayer, so that's kind of where my opinion on this is all coming from, just for your sake out there. So going in though to my issues, one of the biggest things for me was that the game just felt too straightforward to be a roguelike. There weren't those elements of randomness that I really like about the games. Over the course of several runs, you would spawn into the same spot almost every time. It was weird. You've got this big circular map, and for some reason, I want to say 75% of the games I spawned in the same exact spot. And I don't know if that's just how it's supposed to work. There was a couple times where it was different, but most of the time I was in the same spot, and so I found myself spawning there, going to the same areas, fighting the same enemies every time. And then you go through these areas, you open chests, you get items. You get a lot of items that, I would see the same weapons over and over again, or I would see I would see the same weapons that I just couldn't use, or didn't really work with my class that I picked. So I tried playing the game with several classes over the course of my playthrough. I did Wilder, Iron Eye, the Executor, I think it was the Executor, it might be the Executioner. I wrote Executor in my notes, and the Recluse. And I found that I really enjoyed the Recluse the most. I enjoy Magic and Souls games. I know it can be a little busted sometimes, but I think it's just a genuinely fun play style. But the issue I kept running into, especially while playing the Recluse, is that she uses staves. And a lot of the times, the weapons I'd be getting would be swords, axes, spears, clubs. Occasionally, you would find a staff in a certain room, But most of the time, I was getting these weapons that just wouldn't do anything for me. They did absolutely nothing. So I found myself just not being able to upgrade myself at all in that way, because the weapons just felt completely pointless to me. So it works great, I think, the system that they have, if you're playing a class that uses a melee weapon, which is a fair number of them, I will say. I think I was in the minority playing a magic class, because there's a lot more options from the other weapon types. But if you're someone like me, even when I was playing as a group and I had other people taking those weapons, I still just never found the staves that I wanted. going into a little bit more detail about some stuff I said earlier too, I felt like Nightreign then was just missing the roguelike elements that I liked. I never felt that as I was playing through the game, I was ever getting stronger, or like scaling properly. So in those other games, those other roguelikes, Binding of Isaac, Hades, all those, the best part is feeling like you're going from a good run, you've got a good build. I never felt like I had a good build at all in my time playing Nightreign. I felt like I was just running around, grabbing items, and it would switch my spells for me if I got a new staff. That was cool. And the game uses this like leveling system that kind of harkens back to other Soulslikes, and especially Elden Ring, which I kind of like in theory that they kept that element. It makes sense contextually within the world. But the way that you leveled just didn't feel like adequate enough to make you feel like you're scaling, you know? With like a Souls-like game, to be fair, it felt like you were leveling in a Souls-like game. It's slow, it takes a long time, but the problem was, you don't have fucking time in this thing. You're trying to level up, and most runs, if I were to only make it to like the first boss, I would be like level 5, level 6 by the time I get there. On the couple times I made it to the second boss, I would get maybe like level 8 or 9 because it gets more and more expensive. But it just didn't feel like it was scaling enough to make me stronger, you know? So then looking on the other end of the spectrum at Souls-like games, Nightreign is just very, very fast-paced, and it wants you to always keep moving. And to a certain extent, you kind of have to, because if the circle closes on you, then you're dead. It'll kill you over time. It does damage. And in Souls-likes, I really love that feeling of getting immersed in the world and discovering hidden locations and stuff, but I could never do that because I would go to an area, okay? I would go to an area. I would start there almost, and I would clear that area out. And by the time I clear that area out, the circle's moving in on me. And so I might have a few seconds to look around, but by the time that happens, I gotta sprint. And in that time I'm sprinting to stay within the circle, I would miss out on all these other areas that I want to go look at. And the problem is, if I were to spawn into another run and go back to the same area, and finally I would have to, one, knock down all the enemies again. Then by the time I do that, and finally maybe get to explore again, getting rushed on. And I don't particularly like that. There's not a lot of roguelikes that keep you on such a tight constraint. Risk of Rain and Risk of Rain 2 have that like timer in the corner that the game gets harder as you go on. I think that works a little better than a big massive circle that's going to kill you, because at least with the timer, I am free to still explore without worrying about just like suddenly dying, you know? And I just don't think it really worked. So I also mentioned earlier that I really, really like the combat. I think they did a really, really good job with it. I'm saying really, really a lot. Really, really. I really, really enjoyed the combat. But, well, so it's, I shouldn't say but. I gotta read my notes first. but the combat does feel like very fluid, and the weapons all handled very well. And I think the different character abilities also work to keep the player going faster. But like I said earlier, I really prefer that slower combat where I can approach an obstacle at my own speed. And I just always felt like I was being rushed in this game. I don't want to be rushed in a Souls-like. It just kind of contradicts what a Souls-like is almost. So the biggest thing though, and I was talking to one of my friends about this when I was discussing why I don't like the Nightreign. The biggest issue I ran into, especially while playing the Recluse, and this was an issue in both solo runs and multiplayer runs, but less so in multiplayer. There's some things that make it work a little better. FP was like a fucking nightmare to me. So playing the Recluse, you use magic. You use FP. You cast spells, and your FP bar goes down and down and down till it's gone. And the problem I had, though, was in this game, you do get flasks, like in other Souls games, except your flasks, you only have a health flask. In order to get FP back, you need to either have an item on you that'll do it, like just a single-use item, which you can randomly get. You have to go onto a site of grace, which will instantly restore your magic. Or you have to find, like, there's these certain locations around the map that you would interact with, and they would give you some FP back. So, when you're in combat, as the Recluse specifically, and because the Recluse was the only magic class that I had, I'm casting spells. Then you have your abilities, and their class ability is this thing where you can, like, absorb FP from an enemy that you're fighting. So, you cast spells, then you absorb FP. Works really well in multiplayer because your friends, when they hit it, also, like, so the way it works though is in order to absorb FP, this is like kind of the crux of the issue. In order to absorb FP, you have to first deal damage to the person. So you can absorb FP, but then you have to hit them again before you're able to absorb again. So in multiplayer, it works great because your friends, your partners might also be hitting the boss, and that counts towards that. So you can step back if you need to, absorb some FP, get your FP back up, and then go wail away again. It works just fine. In solo mode, though, oh my god, it was a fucking nightmare. Playing through the game, I kept running out of FP, and the issue was that I might kill an enemy with my FP, and then I had nothing to absorb from. So in order to absorb FP, I would have to run up to an enemy and, like, either hit them with my staff or punch them, which as a squishy mage character is never a good thing. And then you're finally able to absorb a little FP back. And there were certain situations, like the first boss I was ever put up against in the game, in like my first run, was first off, it's a double boss, which double bosses are never my favorite in Souls games, but they're not the worst. But this one was a double boss where it's the demi-human queen and a demi-human swordsman, and they also summon like a fucking army of enemies. So when fighting this boss, I would run out of FP, and I would try to run in and like hit one of them just so I could absorb more. But the problem was that in order to get in, I would be going up against not one, not two, but sometimes like up to 10 enemies at a time, trying to dodge all of them while just getting one little punch in so I could absorb more magic. And you could say skill issues, sure, but the problem was it just wasn't fun, you know? It's okay if something takes skills, but it should at least be fun, you know, to like learn those skills. And so I just, it's a real problem. I'm scrolling down because I just talked like an entire section here. So something that I've always been impressed by in Soulslikes is that they're hard, but they are still fun, you know? Time and time again, you're going up against these massive brick walls, and the fun of the game is learning how to beat those walls and go over it. But Nightreign just like isn't doing it for me at all. I think there are some issues that might help that. I think some better scaling for solo. I tend to be a solo player in general, but I figured if I'm going to try this game and try to enjoy it, I'm going to give it multiplayer a shot as well, because, you know, I can't say I don't like a game if I haven't actually tried the different elements of it. So I think that the core pieces are here, and I figure maybe if they work on these things, better scaling, make magic better, just give us a fucking magic flask, please. If they were to implement these things, I think it would make the game a lot better to play. I hope this has made like any lick of sense too. I'm just speaking my thoughts into existence based off a really, really long fucking notepad thing on my phone. So at the end of the day, Nightreign, though, just didn't give me what I wanted out of the game, and I think that's completely okay. Not every game needs to be for every person, and I've talked about that time and time again. It's okay to not like a game, you know? And at the same time, it's okay to understand why a game is good and still not like it. But in terms of what I wanted out of Nightreign, I just wasn't getting it, so I just decided I don't think I need to play it anymore, you know? It didn't give me a reason to keep playing it. I'm hopeful that over time the game will get better, and maybe I'll pick it up again in like a year or two and see what they've done with it. If patches go out that far, we'll see. But also I'm hopeful that with more games coming out that are probably similar, like we have The next FromSoft game that's already been announced is Duskbloods for the Switch 2 whenever that releases. And that's also supposed to be like a multiplayer game. It's a multiplayer online. It looks like a PvP battle royale game. We don't know a lot of info about it still. There's still a lot I want to learn, but I hope that when it comes to that game, they take time to learn from feedback on Nightreign to improve that game to make it a better all-around experience for all kinds of players. And so I think it also just is really crazy that that's going to be a fucking console exclusive. It's Bloodborne all over again. So we'll see what happens. But those are my very, very kind of ranty thoughts about Nightreign and why I just didn't enjoy it, you know? And I think at the end of the day, that's okay. And if you enjoy it, I'm glad you do. I'm glad you found something that you really like in that game. It's just not for me, you know? Thank you for, if you've somehow made it this far of me rambling, thank you for watching. Not all my videos are like this. I do scripted stuff and it's a little bit more put together. I just wanted to get these thoughts out before they leave my brain for all eternity. It's also a lot harder to ramble like this when I'm on camera like the whole time because I don't want to look at my phone, but if I don't look at my phone, I get lost. So that's how it goes. But anyway, thank you for watching. Yeah, until next time.